England and Scotland, folks. Scotland get it done. 20 points to 17 in the second match of the Six Nations. Saturday. It's Sunday morning for me. I just had my breakfast. I had to stop and refuel because that was an intense finish to the game. If you've watched it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. This one went right down to the wire. Multiple scrum resets at the end. Really kind of tension, edge of your seat stuff. That's the way you like the games, to be honest. That's one of the main attractions of the Six Nations. There's some nice close score lines. So, yeah, we'll go through some of the key events, the stats, and you guys can let me know thoughts on the game. To be fair, the start of the game is pretty much all England in terms of ball in hand. Now, it's one of those weird ones where Scotland didn't look uncomfortable. They just didn't have any ball. Now, Scotland's defence, I've done a video the other day about some stats. I think I mentioned their stats. Like, very few clean breaks conceded, high tackle percentage, don't ship many points. Like, Scotland's defence is pretty comfortable. But they got a good test of it in that first half. The first half, they end up making like almost 90 tackles. Like, they're just defending for huge periods of that first half. England seemingly kind of unable to crack them. They would like either knock it on or give away a penalty, and Scotland would kind of exit, or they would put in these dinking little kicks. A lot of kicking from England. I mean, I should say it was pretty wet. On the TV alone, it looked quite wet, and then if you know you can see it on the TV, then at the ground is even worse. So it did seem very wet. And yeah, England, heaps of ball, just testing that Scottish defence. But as I said, the Scottish defence looked pretty comfortable. It was under pressure, but not to the point where they were absolutely scrambling. They did eventually concede a breakdown penalty. Jonny Gray got pinged at the breakdown, so England were able to finally get some reward for a huge early period of possession. And yeah, 3-0. But then like a minute or two later, Scotland, virtually first chance, catch England with their pants down. Maybe England are just too busy having had the ball for so long, they're not expecting it, but Stuart Hogg just puts Darcy Graham in a gap, and that guy is fleet-footed. Doesn't need a second invitation. Goes through, steps Joe Marchant, and they manage to set up Ben White for the first try of the game. No more than like a minute or two after England have just finally, after like 16 minutes of pressure, managed to grind out 3 points. Scotland have got 7. It was, yeah, crazy. Just crazy kind of turnaround in terms of the momentum. As I mentioned, England with the little kicks through with the conditions, maybe it's the smart play, but sometimes I kind of wish they'd kept ball in hand. A lot of little dinking kicks, not necessarily bad, like sometimes they were in a touch, sometimes they were putting the Scottish guys just outside their own kind of goal area. One of them was, I think, a goal line dropout. So, yeah, it's just at times I wish they'd kind of worked the ball through a few more phases, because England did that later in the game and looked kind of dangerous, but as I said, Scotland's defence was pretty resolute. England did get held up on 31 minutes through a maul, but they managed to get a breakdown penalty pretty much in front to make it a 1-point ball game, 7-6, and Russell managed to get one back, though, for Scotland down the other end to make it 10-6 at half-time. So the half-time stats, you'd think England should have been in front. Run meters 277 to 110. Possession 63-37, territory a whopping 72-28. But, like I mentioned, Scotland's defence is pretty comfortable playing without the ball. 83 tackles they make, and at 95% completion, so huge numbers. England make 37 tackles, and they are at 86%. So not as flash numbers by any means. Penalties conceded as 6 apiece. Fagerson, Matt, who gets man of the match, has already made 12 tackles by halftime. Second half, again, it's a decent period of pressure from England. They do manage to get 3 points out of it, so it's back to a 1-point ball game. But maybe it's partly the conditions. Neither side was really able to kind of crank through 5, 6, 7 phases. It just wasn't really happening. It was either knock-ons or kicks. Yeah, maybe not the kind of time where you want to be building necessarily 10 phases. That being said, Scotland did manage to go through a few phases, but then conceded a scrum penalty. And it's from that scrum penalty that England were able to set up for their only try of the game. Marcus Smith gets it. That one you got to give a bit of credit to Ben Youngs, because he kind of had a wee snipe. drew his man, and then put Marcus Smith through a nice gap. So Smith goes through, puts England in front. They do miss the conversion, but it's 14 points to 10. So the lead has changed a couple of times, and it almost got worse for Scotland. Well, I don't know what your guys' blood pressure is like after that one, but Scotland go a bunch of phases. I think it's 10 phases, which is among the highest in this game, before they lose the ball. Slade gets it and just hoofs it long. It's a pretty good kick, and it looks like it might be going to go for a 50-22. Hogg knows this on his run back. My daughter's excited about that, clearly. Hogg, on the sideline, before it can go out, manages to tap it to keep it in field, but Max Malins is tearing after him. So somehow Hogg manages to gather the ball and not let Max Malins just go over for a kind of unopposed try. It is proper heart-in-your-mouth stuff. I mean, he executed it pretty well in the end, but geez, your blood pressure can't have been doing very well after that one. Goodness gracious me. Yeah, you guys need to take your meds, I think, after that one for sure, because the whole game was kind of like that. Errors from both sides, like I mentioned. Smith missed touch. Duhan van der Merwe had a nice big line break, but then immediately got kind of turned over at the breakdown. So, yeah, not all that fluid, but it was that kind of game, as I mentioned, the conditions. England managed to kick a penalty to make it a 7-point lead. 17 points to 10. I wrote decent lead. Like in this game, 7 points is pretty solid. Doesn't look like anyone's going to come with a quick fire 10 points and really overcome such a lead. However, speaking of kind of heart in your mouth moments, Scotland really start to let loose. Around 65 minutes, Finn Russell cross-kicked to big Duhan. Makes sense, he's a big unit. And then immediately cross-kicked to Darcy Graham. And at the time I'm thinking, why the hell are you kicking to Darcy Graham? He's not a big man. He's not going to be getting any aerial ball. But if you notice, he's up against Luke Cowan-Dickie, who's a hooker and probably not as adept at taking a high ball as even the not so tall Darcy Graham, right? Wingers train for that kind of thing. Hookers not so much. And it's pretty evident because Cowan-Dickie gets to the ball first, but he whacks it into touch with his hands. And can't do that. It's not rugby league. So, yeah, it's a yellow card for Cowan-Dickie, and it's a penalty try. So England go from having a solid 7-point lead to it being tied up 17 points apiece. Every now and again, you do get these brain explosions with guys in a totally pressure moment where all they can do is think of defusing that situation. I think Geordie Barrett did it once, or was it Sonny Bill? Maybe both of them, for the All Blacks, like whacking the ball dead. Because in rugby league, you can do that. But yeah, that, I think, for England is probably the most costly moment of the game. I've already seen there's a little bit of murmurings about some dissatisfaction with the game, the way the game ended. But if I was going to complain about something as an England fan, it would be your decision-making of your hooker in that moment. So, yeah, good work from Scotland to switch the sides of attack and exploit the fact that it was a front row up against the wing out there. So, yes, 17 points apiece. With Cowan-Dickie off, you end up seeing Joe Marler take a line-out throw, which is a first for me as well. They do a smart thing by throwing it short, but not so smart, and it doesn't go 5 metres, so it ends up being Scotland ball. Scotland win a scrum penalty on 71. They opt for 3. Finn Russell just squeezes it in the post, but it's enough, so 20 points to 17. That's the final score, but the game was still far from done. Scotland on 76 got a penalty, almost like an easier position, pretty easy to kick. And you're like, right, they're going to kick this and it'll be a 6-point lead, pretty much game over unless England can go score a converted try, which they've not managed to do in this game. Why did I put conversion on the board? Marcus Smith didn't kick the conversion. Too late now, I'm not going back to change it. But yeah, they didn't look like scoring 7, so 6 points was going to be a good lead. But the TMO gets on the horn, spots a neck roll from Hamish Watson, so England kind of get a reprieve. And from there, they're able to go upfield. But Scotland pinch their line out. It all kind of devolves into this one moment where we've got a scrum on an England feed at the death, just inside Scotland's half. And it gets reset and reset and reset. And the ref calls the the players over and says, you know, neither of you staying upright, you're both at fault. A couple of them looked a wee bit stronger for England. One of them, I think, looked a bit stronger for Scotland, but Ben O'Keefe resets all of them. And then eventually on like the fourth try, the ball does come out. The clock's well in the red by this point, and England's attack is a bit of a meh, nothing one. And Darcy Graham ends up pinching the ball. Scotland scramble it out, and it's a famous victory. They retain the Calcutta Cup. They take the Rayburn Shield from England. So happy days for Scotland. Absolutely pandemonium scenes at the end. Big celebration. Stuart Hogg's pretty pumped. First time they've beaten England 2 years running, I think, in quite some time, in like consecutive games anyway. So yeah, massive win. But I mean, losing bonus point for England, so their campaign is far from done. But yeah, they'll certainly be looking a bit at how they didn't kind of manage to accumulate a few more points in that first half to break down that Scottish defence. Final stats finish: run meters 286 to 415. That's in England's favour. Possession 54-46 and territory 62-38. So England still dominate those two, but you can see how it evened up in that second half. Clean breaks is 4-3. Scotland having one more, so less ball, but more clean breaks. Defenders beaten 17-6 in Scotland's favour. So as I said, defence only missing 6 tackles looked pretty comfortable. I think Tom Curry alone missed like 3. So that's half of what the Scotland team had. Penalties conceded 13-10, so Scotland conceded a couple more. Lineouts though, 16 from 16 for Scotland. Proper good set piece, whereas England missed a couple. 15 from 17 is still not bad, but 100% looks better. Tackles, 128 at 96% for Scotland. It's about as good a defensive shift as you will ever see. England are 103 tackles at 87%, which is on its own terms is also, it's like it's okay, but it's not up to the same level that Scotland were at. So Darcy Graham, 6 defenders beaten, which is, remember, the same as the whole England team had. 2 clean breaks and 52 run meters for him. Matt Fagerson, man of the match, 16 from 16 tackles. Malins had 103 run meters and a clean break, plus a defender beaten. But yeah, I feel like he didn't get the ball maybe as much as we could have seen. Tom Curry, still the top England tackler. He gets 12, but he does miss 3, like I mentioned. So yeah, big win for Scotland. Bit of pressure on now, because that's the first step of their campaign. Like, I've been saying it for years. They've got the squad. We just need to see kind of consistent results week in, week out. They are, I think, away to Wales next, which will be a good test. If Scotland are really going to front up, they need to be beating Wales based on what we saw in the Wales-Ireland game. But I expect Wales to back up as well after that. For England, I think they're playing Italy away, so that should be a good chance to bounce back for them and get the campaign underway. But yeah, by no means out of the running yet. England losing bonus point away from home, as I mentioned. Not too bad, but they'll still be burning that they couldn't get a win. So yeah, congratulations Scotland. Big win. It'll mean a lot, but I do want to see them kind of push on and show us something a wee bit more. Alright guys, if you want Lions gear, I've been talking about it for ages. They're clearing it out from the British and Irish Lions tour. I'll put a link in the description for them. They're an affiliate of the channel. 70% off last time I checked. Some of the gear, I'm not sure if it's all of it, but gotta love British and Irish Lions gear. There's a few Lions in both of these teams. So yeah, you guys take care, and I'll see you again soon. See you later.